We hadn't been able to get anywhere near Stonewood for years. So when you take him down this time, you take him down hard.
He's created a legend for himself. The only lasting thing about Jacob Stonewood would be his prison sentence.
Trying to get the budget to do this kind of movie is difficult. Also, I think financiers go, that's not what Britain does. So, you know, leave that to America and you guys come out with your gritty British fare. But largely, I think it's budget. Where we struck gold is that we had Ridley and we had Iran. And Iran made this movie for peanuts, man. But he makes it look like he had 40 million, I think. The second-time movie director, honestly, is one of the most organised on it, most in command of his craft that I've ever worked with. Much more experienced people kind of floundering compared to what he did. And that's down to him, and it's down to the two producers he's got as well, Ben Pugh and Rory Aitken, who are like a triumvirate of young wunderkinds who just somehow really know what they're doing, even though they've only done it a couple of times. And it was a joy to work with. So I think that's partly why we don't always produce these kind of things. And also, I think it's ourselves as well saying, right, I've only got 5 million, I'll do shaky camera and I'll make it look gritty. And there's nothing wrong with that. We love gritty cinema, I love gritty realism, I love British grime. And I hope to be in lots more films like that. But it's nice to see somebody go like, why can't we be sharp and sheer and classic looking and slick looking, you know? Why can't we have an aspirational criminal instead of like a hood gangster guy, do you know what I mean? So you've actually got Mark Strong being very sharp, also arguably a lot more sorted than the copper as well. So just an interesting attempt to try and do something we don't always do.
How can you do that?
What?
How can you just stand there and not even argue your point?
I had a point, I'd argue it.
When I asked to work with you, Max, I thought you'd at least have my back.
Yeah, no. Look, I've just learned not to get involved, all right?
You feel more ownership over a small thing because there's less people involved and it's more reliant on you turning up with the goods, whereas in the bigger things you just feel like a much more of a cog in the wheel. Don't get me wrong, I had a great time in X-Men, I had a great time in Narnia, Wanted, all that, but I think the smaller the budget, the smaller the family is that are making that film, and therefore you feel much more part of it all, you know. But the big movies are great fun, don't get me wrong, and with that bigger budget comes bigger scope, and sometimes you find yourself, you know, in a terrifyingly huge situation and you're right at the apex of it, and that can be very thrilling to be involved in because you know that if you mess it up you're going to cost somebody millions, and I don't know why that's quite exciting, but it is. I think it's going to be a slightly darker journey for Charles this time anyway. It's going to be a humongous cast. It's going to be like the cast of the beach scenes at Saving Private Ryan, but everyone's a mutant, and everyone you've seen in other movies before. But yeah, I think it's going to be quite a dark journey compared to the kind of the caddish, almost kind of playboy character that we sort of turned him into in the first movie. I think we'll be going through a darker place to ultimately get him to a sorted kind of Professor X that we're used to seeing come the third movie. But this movie I think might be a little bit more of passing through the crucible for him, you know.
Ruan, where are you? Ruan!
The BBC were doing a new TV show of Robin Hood, and that I was Robin Hood, and there was a picture of me in my local paper in Drumchapel in Glasgow robbing a post office, like with my head stuck on some guy with a bow and arrow going, "Give me your fucking money," which is quite funny. But I think that was about the weirdest rumour I've heard.
Why don't we just let off some fireworks while we're at it? He'd written something on his hand. Punch 119.
Get down!